Hi, Tom. Hi. It's all very
You all
quiet
right?
at the moment. Yeah, I'm good. Good. I think people are just obviously on their way shortly, I'm sure.
Let's
Just
hope so.
doing a bit of housekeeping whilst they're on their way in.
If it's all right with you, I'll give the first half an hour. I
Let
need
me
to
just.
get Boyd.
All right. Okay. Let me let Boyd in. I think Sita wants a link as well. I think Sita might join us. Hi, Boyd.
Hey.
Oh,
Hi,
wait.
Boyd.
I just need to send Sita a link to it because Sita would like to join us. That's great. Okay. People sometimes have a problem finding the link in their diaries, I think. Just put that for Sita. Oh, hang on. Just had a message from Molly. We're on this Google link below for our progress meeting. Is it correct? No. I'll send them the right one. I don't know why they're in there. It should be in here.
I think if with the Google Calendar, sometimes it creates its own little like potential link for meeting up instead of the.
And that was sent. Great, Grace. Oh, that's Grace's email address. Who sent this? I can't quite be sure. Oh, I see. Hang on. No, it's not. That's wrong. Sorry, it won't be a moment. I can't quite get who's actually sent this email. Let me send it to them all. Won't be a minute. Get this link sent to them, and they should be able to find their way. You send that first. Sita's here. Great. Okay. Hi, Sita. Sorry, I think that's all right. I think the performers are also Guttersnipe Theatre are also somewhere else. They've gone off to another meeting in Google Hangouts or something like that. I'm not sure.
There's just so many meetings and invitations and God knows what else, isn't there?
I know. Different platforms and people meeting in different places.
Exactly.
Anyway, they should be on their way.
Great.
Let's see. Excuse me. Okay, they should be on their way. Right, I'll send them all a link now.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi there. I'm just sorting out admitting people, letting people in, and that sort of thing. Poppy's on her way. Excellent. Hi, Poppy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. I think we're just waiting for Molly to arrive. Were the three of you somewhere else? The three of you were in a Google Hangout somewhere.
Yeah, we were in a Google.
We were
hanging out in Google somewhere. There we are. Molly's here as well now. Excellent. Good to see you. Hi, Molly.
Well, hi. Sorry about that. I'm not sure. We couldn't find any Teams links, but we wasn't sure why. Yeah.
Oh right. Well, anyway, I say if there's a problem, I can always send it to you. But I'd send it to you. Hopefully, you should get it in a calendar invite. But sometimes it goes into the wrong
Right.
calendar or something. Who knows? Anyway, you're here now. That's the important thing. And these meetings are not so. With fewer of these meetings, then obviously more of them will be in with Boyd in through the OBS Ninja and that sort of thing. So these are rare occasions, I guess. There's only about 3 or 4 of these events I think we do throughout the residency. So and it's just for an hour. And I probably like to finish up a little bit earlier than 5. I've got to rush off to something at 5, not rush off, but got to digitally be somewhere at 5. So we'll try and finish a little bit earlier than that. But I guess, I mean, this is a kind of halfway interim catch up and update and progress and that sort of thing. And we really enjoyed your session on, when was that? Was that this week? Was it Monday, Tuesday, I think?
Was that Tuesday? Yeah, that was
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
This Tuesday. Tuesday just gone. That was really good session. And it was fun to see how things are developing. And I think we're getting a real sort of ability to perform and communicate and interact in the space. So that's great. So just to say, I've sent you the dates, the slightly revised dates. I know that Boyd, you have an issue with the 7th. We move that now to the 16th, I think it is. That's what we did.
18th, yeah, I think it's Saturday.
18th or that's right. Yes, sorry, that's right. I'm away that week. I'm away from the 16th, so I can't make that one. But never mind. That's fine. You don't need me there. I'm really there just to watch. I'm not see that may affect you were interested in joining the sessions, weren't you?
Yes, sure I think it's the first time I've met you all, so it's lovely to meet you. Peter.
Hi.
Welcome to Sita.
And I will be at some of the remaining sessions, but unfortunately I also am away that weekend, so I can't make it that weekend. But I will be joining your other sessions. So.
Great. So you've met. So yes, sorry, I haven't introduced you. So Sita is also one of our research team. So Sita's been joining a number of different sessions. She's a scholar and in the area of dance and choreography and digital performance background, and previously professor of technology and dance. Was that right, Sita? I think at Leeds University, weren't you, formerly?
Leeds, yes, yeah, that's right. I'm now a freelance scholar, so I'm on the project as a consultant. So I'll be in and out, see how it's getting on.
Fantastic. And we all, as a team, we all work on these on these case studies and look at all the material and write up the kind of analysis of the performance and project. And that's also Sita's involvement in the project in a lot of that respect. So maybe I won't want to talk any longer. I'm gonna hand over to you, and maybe we'll just use this session just to sort of have a chat about where you think you're up to, what you need to do between now and the end of the last session, which we're referring to as our performance output session. And so you have about three sessions, I think, two and then a performance, but the performance is a little including a dress rehearsal as well. So how do you feel things are going, and where do you need to sort of work on over the next couple of sessions?
I feel like,
Sorry.
you go. I feel really happy with our progress, bearing in mind we've got two more sessions. And then the performance. I think we're in really good stead. It's funny though, because every time we come in, we come up with more ambitious ideas and more bits that we want to add. So it keeps getting more and more complex. But I think probably in the next session, we'll just have to say, this is what it is now, and then just hone it and refine it and rehearse it. But yeah, I mean, it's unlike anything we've ever done before. And it's presented some really, really fun challenges. And I mean, Sita, it will be interesting for you because we've had the challenge of our dancing not quite being in sync because there's a delay. So that's something really interesting. but yeah, I feel really happy. I think we've just had so much fun with Boyd's creations. It's genuinely been a pleasure, you know, because there's all this setup that takes an hour, and you're overhauling your front room, and then you get in, and it's just quite a good laugh. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. But Mol, what were you going to say on the more kind of production side of things?
Yeah, no, similar really. I sort of think, yeah, every session we do, it's just so much more comfortable being in that space. And I think we were finding really nice moments that were not just, you know, oh, that's a funny line or that's a funny image, but actual like, yeah, physical sequences and stuff, which was really fun. So yeah, I feel pretty, you know, confident, touch wood, that yeah, it's going to be a great show. And I think, yeah, just really, not that it's about perfection, and I know you always say, you know, it's more about committing to these movements, but every time I feel like we're just getting a little bit better, so I'm loving that. And yeah, introducing the dance was great, because we were a bit more delayed last time, weren't we? So we then sort of choreographed it, so it's got a bit of flexibility, but we've got some moments which we really do hit, and I think look great when we're all doing it together. I think my favourite thing is I'm really excited to do the interaction with the Mufti Day boys. So that probably won't mean anything. But what we've got me and Grace and Poppy dressed up as a boy band, which is then pre-recorded, which we're going to have on the digital stage with them and us. So I'm really up for, in our next session, just getting, you know, this interaction between the two groups, which will be really fun. And we're going to be filming that footage that will go in there this Sunday.
And just to piggyback on what you were saying, Molly, as well, and Grace, yeah, I've just been just really like, yeah, feeling more and more comfortable each session with, last session, I think was the first time I wasn't clinging onto watching the screen when I was performing, which was a real like, oh, I'm actually just like trusting that this is translating on the screen what I'm doing. And yeah, just felt really, I felt far more natural, even though it was a very sent up, silly thing that we're doing. I felt far more natural in the space last time for sure. And yeah, just really excited. It is just so, I love the lack of limitations. If we're like, oh, then we want to get teleported to hell, it's like done. So it's really quite like a gift as a storyteller, just to be like, I don't have to think about how to like demonstrate this with like a chair on a stage, like I have every single graphic at the end of the click of a button. So yeah, it has been like an absurdist dream completely. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, just really excited just to, as Grace was saying and Molly, just to like, now that we have like all the pieces in place, just to like run it again and again, just to make it into like a very smooth dance between each scene. I'm really excited about that. Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, just jump in very quickly, just a point that Molly mentioned earlier on, which I think is really interesting. What you're doing with this use of the Mufti boys, as in you're playing 3 other characters, and they happen to be recorded characters that but work seamlessly with yourself. So you're performing with yourselves as pre-recorded characters. That's an area that I'll have to talk to Steve Dixon about, who's done a lot of that with his previous company. He had called the Chameleons, and they did an awful lot of early digital performance where they did a lot of doubling of themselves, playing with themselves in the same shot. So that's really interesting, and it's lovely that you also then have this costume change, and you become the judges, of course, as well. So there's actually 9 characters in this performance, of which you the 3 of you play all 9 characters, and that's something really to sort of yeah, I think that's great, actually. I love that opportunity. But yeah, Boy, did you want to say anything more about where we are with things and how things are going?
Sure. I guess I have just one. It's not a little concern. It's probably a big concern. I want to see Poppy get flung off the stage a little bit more often.
I'm glad you brought that up. I've made
Okay.
Do that.
And more Scooby-Doo exits. Those are my. Oh, no. I'm finding it super fun. I love the way that the script is sort of set up and it allows this sort of flexibility. As you can tell, I'm really into the goofy sort of absurdist sight gags. So the fact that the three of you are super game is yeah. I mean, it's super fun for me. And yeah, I looked back at some of the footage from our last rehearsal, and the judges' quick change actually looks so awesome. Like, you know, 'cause when I'm in it, like I'm not really absorbing as much, and then like just watching how quickly that transition happens, and it would. I think an audience member would assume it was almost pre-recorded because it just looks so. It's like, how did that happen? And of course, you know, you're literally just taking off a wig and everything. But yeah, I think it's you're coming up with some super fun things, and it's cool to kind of push the boundaries of what the software can do. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I
And
ask you- oh,
sorry, go ahead. Please, sorry, Sita.
yeah, no, that's fine. Grace said at the beginning that it's a very, very different way of working. Can I just ask you a little bit about, if you could talk about how, other than the obvious, how is this changing the way that you would normally work? Is it changing your approach to scripting or approach to movement? What are the sort of main changes that you're experiencing as a result of this?
I think it's a bit like what Poppy was saying about the lack of limitation. So I come from a background in kind of physical theatre and mime. So the whole thing has been, there is nothing on stage. You have no resources, no money, no materials, and therefore you're just working with the body and you're creating an invisible world. So it's almost in complete contrast to that, because you have everything at your disposal, literally everything. So whereas I come from like the craft of how do I show the audience that I'm in hell with there being nothing, this is how do I respond to the fact that I'm quite literally in hell. But also I'm in my front room in front of a green screen. So it's getting your head around something completely different. And a lot of the times kind of it's about responding in the body, but less is more. Whereas I'm so used to, you know, being on stage with nothing and having to show it all through the body. It's now reining it in, especially because you're in an enclosed space, and being quite precise in what you're responding to in the space and the people around you who are not actually there. So it's worlds apart. It's completely different. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to add, Molly and Pops.
It's interesting because I was thinking about, because I come from a more classical theatre background, so I'm used to having props and sets and everything. So I feel almost this has been the biggest kind of, I've had to really rely on my imagination a lot more than other forms of storytelling, because when I fling my head, I'm looking at the builders outside my window, or you know, a bit of equipment that I'm like, oh, need to sort that out or whatever. I feel like I am utilizing a lot more of my sort of imagination, as I was saying earlier. So yeah, it definitely like took I'd say a couple of sessions to kind of wrap my head around that and kind of just like really trust in it as well. But yeah, I've been really enjoying it, and I've been really enjoying it.
Yeah, I feel very similar. I'm sort of, I don't really have my background, but I'm fringe mainly. So yeah, definitely used to, like you were saying, Grace, not having very much at your disposal. But yeah, I think I've really, definitely changed precision wise. You know, I think we're sort of are encouraged in quite a lot of plays to be like, oh, a bit loose with blocking and then, you know, see what feels right. This is the complete opposite, but I'm loving that. Similar to you, Poppy, I think maybe the first session, sure, I was very aware of my immediate surroundings, but then very quickly, maybe even by the start of the second session, I really completely forget where I am. And then when I'm sort of thinking about rehearsing, I'm not thinking about rehearsing on my floor, I'm always seeing the spaces that we've made, which is quite amazing, because this is, you know, obviously a practice that we've only just come to. I've only done this, you know, a few times, but that's sort of incredible. And I think that's also shaped the way that we've been making a script, which is, you know, it's not particularly dialogue heavy, but when at the beginning I think we were definitely just thinking like story, and, you know, what can we ask Boyd to create, whereas now we're shaping it from what we know Boyd has made and little bits, and be like, oh, we love that bit and we love that bit, so that would work well with this, and there's more sort of synergy between the two, rather than us going, here's a script, you know, what do you want it to look like, which I'm really liking.
That's brilliant. Thank you, ladies. Really clear.
Yeah, really good. One thing you mentioned, actually, one thing you mentioned, not the last session, but the session before, and I think you were talking about someone, I think it might have been Grace, you might have mentioned that you were feeling more and more like you're in the space, as though you are coexisting, as though you're on the same stage. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of this. And one of the things that I've found doing these sorts of things, and that you might have this sort of flashback situation of suddenly thinking, I was on the same stage, you know, thinking physically, your sensory, all the sensory inputs are telling you actually that you are coexisting, and you kind of store that as a memory, that it is coexistent, that it's not in any way physically separate, but actually you remember it as a coexistent experience, because in our kind of what we've allowed ourselves to do is to enter that space. And I think that's a really interesting aspect of this. So you might find the more you do this, you know, you'll be sort of waking up thinking, was that a dream, or was I actually in the room with them? Or
I felt that the most recent rehearsal, when I turned round and Poppy wasn't there. I was like, what?
Yeah,
what?
Exactly.
Because I also had been looking too much at the screen, I think. And Paul, you were reminding me, you know, you actually need to look like this and this to make it have some kind of semblance of interaction. And then when I did that, I was like, she's not there. And that was like this strange, like, yeah, doubling experience of like, oh, they're not in the room with me. But weirdly, and I know you were doing things like this during the midst of lockdown, but with the hugs and the things like that, feeling some kind of strange level of like solace, like, oh, you know, it's a weird feeling. It is weird. It does give you that sense of closeness that I really wasn't expecting.
Yeah, interesting. It's a kind of blurring of the two sort of existence, isn't it? Of being in the space and the physical encounter.
I'm curious if the combat has any kind of a similar. I mean, obviously, you're not going to feel like you're actually getting slapped. I'd hope not. But I'm wondering, because like I've done a lot of this with the hugging before, and actually had my participants reported very, very similar experiences. And this was like right in the heart of lockdown, where they hadn't seen each other, you know, for a year. And I'm wondering, yeah, other types of like virtual interaction that seem to have more resonance than others, or how do they affect you in different ways? Or
I found that with the combat or the general, I feel so playful in the space, and I feel that you can obviously see the recording as I'm like giggling all the way through, just because, yeah, I find it a very freeing environment. And you know, sometimes I'm left twice the size as Grace, and I immediately want to like stomp on her or just see what I can do with that sort of different dynamic. But I definitely feel I don't feel that the connection between us three as actors or all of us together as collaborators is hindered at all. I feel like it feels very freeing, and equally as kind of, yeah, I just feel quite giddy in that space.
Yeah, I think, yeah, specifically like the combat, Boyd, I think you're right. I think if I'm replaying that in my head now, I'm seeing myself, you know, I'm not obviously feeling the impact, but I'm seeing Grace here, and that is what I'm seeing if I'm reimagining the scene. I'm not thinking about where is my hand in relation to my table. So yeah, I think anything with touch, yeah, that's even more heightened, I think.
And when you're doing stage combat in real life, obviously you have that level of sensitivity of, oh, I could actually slap this person. So there's a lot going through your mind, because I feel like I do a lot of fights in my shows, but when I'm going to fake slap my colleague, you know, whereas you can really go for it with this, like make the movement as big as possible. It has to be precise. But I'm really like going for in my mind.
Not used that you can't follow through, obviously, like, oh, you follow through at a weird angle, you couldn't follow through at that angle, otherwise you will hit them. So yeah, that was the thing that took me a little bit of time of like, oh yeah, I can.
Are you're doing it, because I know you're also doing you're also rehearsing, physically rehearsing as well, aren't you? You will be next week, I think, or the week after. And for the show you're going to do in Camden on the 24th, I think it is. You've got that lined up. So are there any elements within the Telepresence stage production and the physical production that are shared? Do you share things? Are there similar scenes that you're playing out?
And there's a strong overlap, isn't there? There's a backstage scene that we do. There's obviously the live songs that we sing with our dance routines, and we don't actually go to hell, sadly. That's just in Telepresence. We don't actually go to hell in the live show, unfortunately. But I've noticed how much it has. I feel like doing Telepresence has really expanded our ambition, in a sense, because we come from the world of fringe theatre and working always towards a poor theatre, and you know, without a lot of funding and resources, until now when we have funding finally. But it's, yeah, I always tend to keep it quite small, and you are physically limited by the black box space. Like Camden People's Theatre is not large, and so we're always reining in our vision. Whereas working with Telepresence and thinking about incorporating digital elements and projecting them in the show has really expanded the scope of what we do. And so we did a week where we were just workshopping the script and rewriting. And at certain moments, we're like, okay, so your soul comes out your body and it lands in this person, and then it jumps back out. And before we would have been like, I don't know how we're going to do that, you know, but we've got all these different elements helping us. So I think my brain, in a sense, with ambition wise, has kind of opened up. I'm not thinking about the limitations of the small black box. I'm going, we can really go anywhere. Yeah, I don't know how you both have found that, Molly and Poppy, but I think we've gone a bit more out there.
I definitely feel, because I think all of us have a sort of similar, quite surreal, cartoony sense of humour. And yeah, in this workshop week that we had, there were definitely moments of like, oh, and then we just like, you know, go to outer space, and that we did have to hone in a couple of like bigger sort of like set ideas, because unfortunately we didn't have you, Boyd, on that. But yeah, I do feel, thinking back on that, I think you are right, Grace. I think we were like just being more free with how silly and ridiculous we wanted to go. Yeah, I think you're right. The practicality element, we kind of like left that to the side, and we were like, okay, we can deal with that when we get to it. Yeah, definitely. So I think it has really helped that process of like not just seeing the space as like two flats and a chair, and how do we work with that. Yeah, which is really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. We're working on, we're going to have a projection for quite a lot of the show, which was sort of very much like in between scenes, and I now think we're going to we're not 100% sure how, but we're definitely going to be working with it a lot more. And I think that's probably come from this process. That's why we've decided it's not just on stage, now it's a projection. We're really syncing those up.
Brilliant. There is because it reminds me, it's rather like what we call a transmedia storytelling approach. Rather like this idea that you have this sort of notion of there's the book, there's the film, there's the computer game. It's all about the same. It's the same narrative or the same story, but it moves into different platforms and is slightly different on each platform. But it's somehow quite similar. That this is, in a sense, this piece with Sugarfix and the Illuminati is moving from a kind of theatre to an online, to the telepresent. Who knows? It could be a game. It could be a podcast. It could be all sorts of things. It could, you might want to think about that as a future as the way it develops and grows, it could go in all sorts of directions.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
We talked before, it's a sort of dream of ours of a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Maybe a digital graphic novel. But yeah, we definitely talked about that. But yeah, who knows? It's very exciting.
That is definitely. Great. I mean, I think just one other quick thing, just think about, and just maybe to have a little discussion about is perhaps for the next two sessions, and I won't be there for the next one on that Saturday, the 18th. But I wonder, just as a suggestion, it might be an idea. You've done an awful lot of rehearsal and trying, and you're very, very good at, and you're committed to getting it right and trying it again. I'm very impressed with how many times you're prepared to do another take on it to see if to sort of perfect it, which is great. But I wonder whether it might be worthwhile doing a kind of dry run through the whole thing. If you're not quite happy with something, just go with it, just carry on, kind of thing. Just to get into the habit of saying, well, just work with that, go to the next scene. So you have an experience of doing the whole performance as in one take, as it were, really. And that way you can then see how long it is. You get some idea of actually that bit needs to be cut, or that bit needs to be a bit longer. You might get a bit of a better idea. At the moment, we're sort of seeing it in fragments of sort of re-rehearsed and retested. So I want to be worthwhile just trying to do a dry run, the whole thing, and then reflect on the whole thing and think, well, what bits are not working as well as others, or and if something, you might help learn to go with something if it doesn't quite work how you thought it might. Yeah. You have to, because it is a kind of balancing act between the sort of scripted and improvised, I think.
And the other thing is that one of the other people we've worked with, they're used to doing theatre-based work, and they found when they ran the whole thing that pacing was out, and that they were pacing as if they were doing a stage show, but actually the pacing for this kind of screen-based performance needs to be a lot snappier, a lot faster. So it might be worth just doing that full run of the arc to get a sense of the pace of the whole thing, in case you need to adjust your delivery style.
I think that's really important, because we were trying to like hone the individual fragments, but you're right, we need to look at the whole and get a sense of it as a whole, and if we need to insert or extract certain bits. But it was what I think the first conversation I ever had with you, Paul, and I was talking kind of about sort of comedy and clowning within this sort of telepresence world, and it just made me think of within the world of clown, they always say mistakes are gifts. Accidents are not accidents, they're gifts. So work with them and not against them. Don't try and hide them, celebrate them and see how bad they can get. So I was thinking of that in terms of this. We're rehearsing these sections, but there could be a big tech glitch. One of us could disappear, something could fall from the sky, like some shit happens. So I think it will be great just to run it through, and when the slaps go wrong, for example, just to really work with it and improvise, because those have been some of the most joyous bits as well, is when Boyd has suddenly thrown a massive boulder on our heads and we have to respond. So if we approach it with that kind of clowny, playful thing that we all enjoy anyway, I think let's just keep running it all the way through and working with the things that pop up.
The other thing that happens regularly with this kind of thing is people don't believe it's live. So if it's too perfect, people assume it's pre-recorded, and actually to get the liveness of the experience, some of those little glitches and slips are, again, a gift in relation to actually showing people that this is live theatre.
You're all very welcome.
Yeah, exactly. So let's have it's really good to hear about all these things. So you've got your next session on the 18th. Boyd, how do you think we're set up? Have you got any intention on how you'd like to approach that? Are you working on a few bits now? Are there some bits that you need? I wonder whether you could just use a few minutes to talk about some practical elements, and whether there's some assets, audio, video, that you still need, and whether we just make sure we're all aware of that and it's in hand.
Yeah, I've got basically a kind of a scaffold of like sort of priorities. As you probably can tell, I tend to get a little ambitious, and I have big visions of what I'd like to do. But the first immediate ones are getting Hell sketched out a little bit more fully, getting the Mufti Boys integrated, getting the I forget your demon's name.
Lizard King.
Lizard King.
Yeah.
Getting the Lizard King set up with basically a lot of this is just engineering the software. So there's a single button that can bring them on and off. Because right now I'm kind of doing everything manually. So a lot of it is just making sure that I have like a single button to control the different dynamic elements, so that we can do a full smooth run through. I'd like to be able to incorporate flying off the screen a little bit more seamlessly and flying on, and adding some visual effects to kind of support that if possible. Audio is, I think, the biggest challenge. And so I think if I know Paul won't be with us for our next one, but the one after, if we set up basically so that Paul is essentially running those audio cues, then I think that'll give us a better chance of, if there's something wrong on my end, the sound can kind of cover, and I think that'll be helpful. I'll have the music video synced from my end because I think that makes the most sense, because the lip syncing and everything wants to be timed. But for any sort of audience reaction or any of those other kinds of audio things that we want in between that can be more flexible, if those are sort of dynamically cued, I think that'll give us a little bit more wiggle room for things to go a little bit different than planned.
That's great. Yeah. And you were gonna ask, I think, is it your project partner, the music sound engineer, designer? You had somebody else you're working with. I think he does the voice. He's doing the voiceovers for you or something.
Yes, that's my my partner Ed.
Okay, that's right.
Record that. So he's just going to do the voiceovers, but we've got quite a good setup here. That's probably going to be either Monday night or Tuesday next week. And I think I had said I would send them to you, Paul. Is it good for me to also send them to you, Boyd? Because
yeah.
On the 18th, great. So that will be any of the little voiceovers, multiple characters. But yeah, anything like, rather than me doing what I'd done before, sort of saying it, all of that.
Yeah. I think it's really good if Ed can actually, if there's any way. There's things like there's a kind of curtain call, isn't there? There's a kind of a call sort of to stage. Sugar Fix. Set the stage for Sugar Fix. I think if you can get someone, get Ed to do that, and perhaps, I don't know, add there are lots of ways. Perhaps if Ed is familiar with that, there's lots of ways of making that, give that a kind of a sort of electronic acoustic sound, so it sounds like a radio voice or something like that. And then somebody in the crowd, isn't there one where someone says, the shit one in the crowd? There's someone that shouts that. They want those ones as well. All those little things. We can add those in. And
if I gave you the raw stuff, Paul, would you be able to put those effects on, or is that something that you'd like?
I could certainly do that and I'm more than happy to do it. But I'm also, I don't want to take away from any kind of creative use that input that Ed would like to have. So I'm more than happy for you, whatever you feel you want to do. So sure. I'm more than happy to have a go at that. I'm not. Sound is not my expertise area, but I can play around with things like I think it's Audacity or something like that. I play around with things like that, and there's some effects I can bring into it.
Okay, cool. See, Ed's more Ed's sort of an actor. I don't know. I might
Fine,
be down, but he might not know how to do sort of effects.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I wasn't aware of that. Okay, Molly, that's perfectly fine. Then get Ed to record the sounds, and I'll have a go at adding any extra effects to them, or Boyd perhaps might have some sound. Experience.
One of the things I don't think the audience would necessarily know, so it doesn't matter. But I find it kind of delightful that you're doing the sound effects kind of off stage, so to speak. So that there is something kind of like, so having the option for both, I think, is smart. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that, like, we all understand that you're doing all these multiple things. The audience would probably not know, but
you're quite right.
I do think those are delightful.
Well, you can make that call, if you want to do that later. So I can have a little go for you. You can get Ed to do the sounds. I'll play around with them. Certainly got some crowd sounds I can help you out with. But as you say, Boyd, that's a good point. And you may want to decide later. Say, actually, I think it's better if I just say, if Poppy currently says a few things off camera, and that's absolutely fine.
Well, I'll record it all for safety, and then if we don't like it.
Absolutely. Okay. Good. Yeah.
I think audio-wise, having like music bumpers of some of your other songs maybe ready to go as we're doing transitions or waiting, because you've got all that kind of awesome music. Is that something you think would work with what you're doing?
For sure, yeah. Poppy, we can get. Poppy's partner made all the music, so he can send little excerpts of songs that could play when we zoom in on like the big eye, for example. And also having those voiceovers recorded, regardless of whether or not we use them, that aids us in the process of the live show, in which we probably will use them anyway. So it's kind of no skin off our nose. It's just good to have in the bank, isn't it? Regardless
Absolutely.
of whether or not we're ducking down to say the voiceovers.
Yeah.
Excellent. So just one last sort of conversation is how I know you've got the live performance on the 24th. Have you been able to sort of generate a kind of audience and interest around the online performance for the 28th? You said you're going to do some kind of social networking, sharing. Is there more we can do, or how do you want to?
We've got a little e-flyer which we've been sending round. If I'm being honest, at the moment it's more of a sort of like, oh yeah, definitely. Not had anyone actually be like, I really want you to send me the Zoom link right now. So yeah, I think we could. We can definitely get that. I'd have to format it into a square. But we can get that on Instagram. Yeah, what do you guys think? Because I am getting a little bit of a few people who are a bit from post lockdowns, a bit like Zoom show fatigued. So how can we do it a bit different?
I think it's making them really aware that it's like however many minutes long, and it's something completely different to the Zoom shows that we saw, which was people doing cabaret acts in their bedroom. Like, it's really making them aware of what actually this is. And I think, for me, I mean, we've been a bit caught up with the live show in the last week or so. So now it's just going to be doing personal invites and making sure they're really aware of what it is, because I know loads of people that will be really up for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if you want, so I think Boyd can probably share that Zoom link for you at some point. Is that right?
Oh,
Boyd?
yeah. I'll get that. And then if you have that e-invite, if you want to send it to me, I'm happy to invite some of my new colleagues from my. I know they're very curious about this work. I've talked a little bit about different things that we're doing, and so might be a few of my colleagues that would want to watch.
I love the idea that that's the first thing that they see of your work.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, that's what you do, is it, Boyd?
And likewise, you can send it to me as well, and I'll be happy to share it as well. So do share that with us.
I will. I'll send it right now. After this call.
Great. Okay, Ollie. Wonderful. All right.
One thing
please go ahead.
I was going to say, if you wanted to think about future things for the stage, I know we briefly talked about the possibility of like bringing some of this stuff on. Can you enable the chat function for me, Paul? I have a link I wanted to share.
Okay. You should have it. Is it not available to you? Can you not chat in there?
Seeing it.
You're not getting my message. I don't know how I do that for you.
Mine's disabled.
Yeah, mine is too.
Yeah.
Available to team members.
Is it? That's interesting. Don't show chat bubbles. Turn on live. Good question.
It's not vital. I was gonna. I mentioned the show that I had just done with Improbotics, and I realized now I didn't send the invite that I said I would. But I have a few images of what it looks like with basically it's a hybrid of sort of what we're doing teleimmersively, but live on stage using a Kinect depth sensor. So instead of a green screen, it's just a camera on stage that does all the background removal. And so I'll share a few of those clips. And so if you want to get an idea of how you might want to incorporate this type of stuff into your stage show, I might give you some ideas.
Oh, gutted we missed it, but that's.
I got my that was my bad. I got super caught up in it.
I was going to say you've been incredibly busy, so you're
No, sorry, Boyd, I can't enable chat for you for some reason in Teams. I have to go and ask Microsoft why, but there we go.
Well, I'll look for an email from me. I'll send a few
please share
of the links just so you get an idea of what's sort of possible with the. It's a relatively basic tech setup, actually. It's not as intense as it used to have to be.
Great. Well, look, really good. I think we'll if that's okay. That's been really helpful for me. I hope for you too. I think my only sort of suggestion, advice is to try that dry run approach and go for the whole thing, just to give yourself some kind of idea of timing. Send us the material, about publicizing your performance. Well, good luck with it all.
Thank you so much, Paul.
No problem at all. No, it's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure. But I'll see you at the next session. So we'll catch up with you then.
Awesome.
Sounds good.
On the I think on the 20th you're going to do something, and then see you after that for the final one. Yeah. Oh, and Boyd, could you remember to record that session on the 18th? You can record it, can't you?
Yeah.
With audio, I can then keep an archive of it. That's brilliant. That's my only sort of worry about not being there is not recording it. And I know you're managing that, but it's one of those things that it's easy to forget, and then you suddenly go, we didn't record it. And that's part of the project, is essentially everything that's been recorded. All right. Okay. Well, have a lovely weekend.
Lovely to meet you, Sita.
Yeah, great to meet you, Sita.
Take care, everyone.
Weekends, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye now. Bye bye.